are becoming a parent. That's why today you'll learn the basics of sex drive, the mental and physical changes our bodies go through during pregnancy and after birth. And we're just going to explore the way becoming a parent impacts our identities and therefore our relationship to sex. Hi, I'm Al, your friendly sex educator and CEO of Dame. Welcome to our sex education channel. Our new videos each week will help all vulva havers and their partners openly embrace sex, bust myths, and end judgments about sexual pleasure and sexual health. Before we dive into the postpartum aspect of sex and pleasure, it's important to explore what drives libido. What is libido? What makes us want to have sex? Well, our sex drive is influenced by a confluence of biological factors like our sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, psychological factors, stress, depression, mentally just how we're feeling in our own personal world, and social factors like family life, moral or religious beliefs, and our relationships. It's a classic example of the biopsychosocial model. And we have a way more in-depth video about libido. It's a really fun and fascinating topic, and I don't think you're gonna wanna miss it. So please subscribe and hit the bell to learn more about that when that video drops. I think the really cool thing about the biopsychosocial model, or rather the human experience, is that there are so many factors that create our own personal journey, and that there is no such thing as normal. However, there are typical experiences. There are typical ways our bodies respond, narratives or trends that are happening in the world. And by understanding that, we can visualize and think through the future that we want, and I think live a more harmonious life with our own bodies. Join me. Let's learn more about what happens to our body throughout pregnancy. So I want to dive into the biological and experiences of the birthing parent. So during pregnancy, our hormones are elevated because our placenta needs more estrogen to create new blood vessels and transfer those nutrients to our babies. In fact, we have 2 times the amount of blood volume in our bodies. And all that blood and estrogen makes for a lot of emotions and, yes, ultimately an increased libido. But also a lot of other things are happening, like you're growing a whole human inside of you. So while, yes, it is typical, there's a common second trimester horniness phase, I certainly did not have one. Either way, our estrogen levels are elevated, and what goes up must come down. So often after we give birth, our hormones crash to the floor. Lower postpartum estrogen levels can cause your vagina to feel dry and cause painful and unpleasurable sex. It actually creates like a burning sensation, and cool fun fact, it's a little bit like going through menopause in our bodies. We also have a physical trauma to our bodies that also can make sex uncomfortable and painful. Whether it was a vaginal or a belly birth, we can have tears, scarring, new wounds that need to heal. Also, breastfeeding impacts our brain chemistry. It releases oxytocin, which is kind of known as the love hormone, which helps you bond and connect with your child. But it can also kind of replace the need or desire for touch and sexual gratification, though it can also make you want it more. Giving birth can cause a lot of physical discomfort. We are more susceptible to infection or reopening wounds as our bodies are healing. So that's why most OBGYNs, midwives, doulas are gonna recommend that you wait about 6 weeks before you have penetrative sex. Again, that's just because of the increased risk of infection or even hemorrhaging. First of all, penetrative sex is only one way of having sex, so you can still have sex outside of that. But since serious complications are rare, they still can happen. So for the sake of your comfort and pleasure, it's usually best to hold off for at least 6 weeks or until you really know that your body has healed. Personally, I waited 5 weeks. Anyway, once the waiting period feels good for you, you might notice that childbirth has caused your uterus to move forward or back. Your organs have literally shifted inside of you. So pleasure might be a whole new experience. You might find it's easier or harder, or something feels different than it used to. I encourage you to have a beginner's mind, to notice these changes, and to welcome this journey and find pleasure in it. Parenthood can also cause psychological and identity changes that affect your sex life, regardless if you're the birthing parent. Some of us might feel more connected with our partners, more sexually lubricated, while others might be rightfully stressed out by this new thing that needs us all of the time. We might also be experiencing PPD, postpartum depression. We're actually gonna have a whole video on that soon. So if you're interested more in learning about how that relates to your sex life, subscribe now so you can be notified. There are also many cases where orgasms become less intense or sex becomes less pleasurable. If this is your experience, seek medical attention from a doctor who will likely put you in touch with a pelvic floor therapist who can teach you exercises and techniques to help reduce that pain. Also, on the flip side of pain, you might find that you are more sexually aroused. I know I was so turned on from seeing my partner parent. I also found that breastfeeding felt good, and that release of oxytocin made me feel a deeper connection, not just with my child, but with my partner. Regardless of what your experience is, one big thing I really want is for you to be compassionate with yourself. You are going through a huge change, and it is okay if your libido is shifting. However, if you are interested in increasing your libido, stay tuned for some tips and tricks for what you can do as you become a new parent and still want to get down. Between changing diapers, constantly feeding, screaming, crying, almost going to sleep and then not going to sleep and then waking up in the middle of the night, whatever it is, you probably straight up exhausted. You are a new mom, a new parent. You are tired. It is okay. Maybe you're not tired. Also okay. Whatever it is, I want to encourage you to talk to your mom, to talk to other parents, learn more about their experience, and know whatever you are experiencing, it is a-okay. And it is totally fine to not want to have sex and to practice self-care by not having sex. If you are experiencing postpartum depression, know that you are having a chemical reaction and there's nothing wrong with you at all, and that we all go through our own unique journeys and yours is equally as special. I also want to urge you to find care. Talk to a doctor. Remember also that this is temporary. Give yourself grace. All of these factors may impact your physical pain during sex, which of course doesn't make it fun. So for example, if you're having a lot of physical pain, you might want to go see a pelvic floor therapist who can help create specialized treatments for you. Speaking of pelvic floor exercises, we are going to show you some more practices that a pelvic floor therapist might recommend, like Kegels or massages. If you're interested in learning more, subscribe and you'll be alerted about that video when it drops. Also, just know you are going through a huge identity shift. It's one where we often don't think of mothers or parents as sexual beings anymore. So if you are really feeling like you're struggling, I want to encourage you to find a therapist to help you find your own personal challenges and celebrations, because there's not a one fix-all solution for everybody, and working with a doctor, a therapist, and or a physical therapist can help you reconnect with your body. So you want to know about some tips and tricks to improve your libido now that you're a parent. The biggest one for you is solo play, masturbation. Can we deconstruct the sexual experience so we can interact with different aspects of it and rediscover them one at a time in a more slow journey? So for example, if you are worried about penetration, if you can feel that fear in your body, try using an internal vibrator like say Arc G-Spot. Explore sensation internally and see how it feels on your own terms by yourself. Explore that pleasure to find out what you like or don't like. It also can be a really great way of massaging your vaginal walls. Also, I highly recommend a pillow. We make a body positioning pillow at Dame that's a pretty firm pillow that will help keep your hips up. I also think that lubricants are the most important thing that you can really purchase post-birth. Again, we're having that deficit of estrogen in our body. So using a natural-based lubricant like ours that has anti-inflammatory benefits are gonna help with vaginal dryness and help improve the pleasure that you're having during sex. I cannot stress it enough, but I think lubricant is ultimately one of the best things you can buy if you are becoming a parent. Also, Eva. Eva is a hands-free clitoral vibrator that will provide clitoral stimulation and help you get back in touch with your partner with a little extra kick. I also highly recommend, again, in that deconstruction of sex, can you guys, you and your partner, simply engage in intimate touching without the presumption that sex is going to happen? So try a massage oil or something that's just gonna help you connect in that way and see how that feels, because you might learn so much in that space before you even decide to delve into sex. Anyway, if any of these tools sound interesting to you, head over to dame.com/sexed to see what we have to offer. Experiencing pleasure is an important part of living our happiest and healthiest lives. So subscribe for a weekly dose of pleasure and wellness here from Dame. That's it for today. Have a great week. I wish you many orgasms. It has been a pleasure.